September 11th, 2012, U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens in Benghazi placed an ominous call to Greg Hicks, who was the #2 diplomat in Libya. "Greg, we're under attack," is what the ambassador said. Hicks was the last person known to speak to the soon-to-be murdered ambassador, and today Hicks was one of 3 State Department whistleblowers telling Congress what happened in Benghazi. So was there, and is there still, a cover-up? Here are parts of today's House hearing.
The response team from the annex in Benghazi, 6 individuals, drove the attackers out of our compound and secured it temporarily. There have been estimates as high as 60 attackers were in the compound at one particular time. At about 3 a.m., I received a call from the Prime Minister of Libya. I think it's the saddest phone call I've ever had in my life. He told me that Ambassador Stevens had passed away.
So fast forward, Mr. Hicks, to the Sunday talk shows and Ambassador Susan Rice. She blamed this attack on a video. In fact, she did it 5 different times. What was your reaction to that?
I was stunned. My jaw dropped, and I was embarrassed.
How did the personnel react to being told to stand down?
They were furious. I can only say, well, I will quote Lieutenant Colonel Gibson. He said, "This is the first time in my career that a diplomat has more balls than somebody in the military."
When Ambassador Stevens talked to you, perhaps minutes before he died, as a dying declaration, what precisely did he say to you?
He said, "Greg, we're under attack."
So the military is told to stand down, not engage in the fight. These are the kind of people willing to engage. Where'd that message come down? Where'd the stand down order come from?
I believe it came from either AFRICOM or SOC Africa.
On the record was inside those Benghazi hearings today, and afterwards we spoke with House Oversight Committee Chair Issa. Mr. Chairman, nice to see you, sir.
Well, thanks for covering today's hearing.
All right, you've gone through all the documents, you've talked to people for weeks leading up to this hearing. I'm curious, did you learn anything new today?
Well, I think the American people learned today from these brave witnesses, these whistleblowers, that the facts as we were told before, during, and after the attack at Benghazi just simply aren't what they really were. The acting ambassador, after Ambassador Stevens was murdered, told us in great detail about what happened that day and what happened in the days to follow, and why we should know that he knew and everyone else in the mission knew from the moment it happened, from the get-go, as he said, that this was a terrorist attack.
Ranking Member Cummings, he came right out of the gate and said you were politicizing this.
Things in Washington start off political, but when you have witnesses who come forward, whistleblowers, and they're not Republicans or Democrats at all, the fact is, these are career professionals, State Department people with as many as 32 years of public service. They're who we heard from today, and I think people on both sides of the aisle may have asked questions based on their view, but the answers are the answers the American people should listen to.
Acting Ambassador Hicks said that when Congressman Chaffetz went to Libya, that apparently he was, at least he testified today, that he was instructed, Mr. Hicks, not to have any personal time or a personal interview with Congressman Chaffetz.
Well, the fact that they didn't want anything, if you will, off the record or anything that might be said that they wouldn't know shows a level of concern they shouldn't have. Congressman Chaffetz was sent by me personally in preparation for the October 10th hearing, along with career people on the committee, staff members, just to get the facts as best they could. He did get some of those facts, but in many cases what he had was a minder, a lawyer from the State Department, and a 4-star general.
So don't you want to ask those minders, bring them in and ask to what extent it was choreographed?
You know, Greta, you've got a lot of experience in law, and I only do this on committee, but you can be sent down erroneous path looking for wrongdoing, conspiracies that probably happen. Those lawyers were probably sent by somebody to keep us from getting to something. But candidly, as quickly as possible, we simply want to have the whistleblowers that are still out there, the fact witnesses that are still out there, to come forward, tell us their story. We'll get it out. We'll close up this investigation. I don't want to be chasing down every rabbit hole over how the administration was paranoid about us finding out. I'm only concerned about how do we keep this from happening in the future. And Congressman Cummings repeatedly said exactly the same thing. We need to find these facts so we can make sure it doesn't happen again.
What prompted Mr. Hicks to come forward and now? I mean, this happened back September, and I think he came forward probably about late March is when he first wanted to talk.
Well, I think he tried to work within the system. That call that he had, multiple calls he had, where he said, I don't know how you're getting this idea that this was a demonstration. I knew better, you should know better, and then being rebuffed by senior State Department personnel and a series of activities, including essentially his being called on the carpet and pulled and put into a lower position. I think those kinds of reprisals that came from his coming forward to say, you guys don't have it right, and he did that in the system before he ever came to Congress, I think that's what probably convinced him that he had no salvation within state, that he would have to fight for what was true with Congress.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.